From the banks of Dewey Lake, it's the Dewey Pod Monster.
All right, welcome back. My name is John, and this is the Dewey Pod Monster Podcast. This is your weekly podcast about consumption, and with me this week is the authority on Michigan craft beer. He is the host of the Dewey Pod Monster Podcast, and his name is Sean. Sean, how are you doing today?
My man. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. So we've said before we record on a Monday, and today was one of the more Monday-is feeling Mondays I've had in quite some time, if that makes any sense.
Did you have a bad day?
It wasn't so much that it was bad, it's just that it was very, it felt like I was stuck in neutral all day. Nothing really happened, nothing really, it felt like time stood still, just kind of shitty in that sense. Nothing specifically bad happened, but just kind of a very Monday feeling Monday, which sucks. It's called being an adult, and I'm not a fan of it. Is this a Sesame Street music?
This song goes out to my buddy John.
Ugh.
Co-host, host of the Dewey Pod Monster Podcast.
I don't even know what this is.
You
but
don't
I
know what
appreciate
this
it.
is?
No.
I was going to edit this out, and now I'm not going to. This one goes out to you, John.
Okay. While we're doing that, what have you been watching?
Oh, we aren't even to the chorus yet.
I don't even know what this is.
So, I watched a plethora of things. A lot of really great things. Yeah, I watched the documentary, This Place Rules. It's an Andrew Callahan documentary on HBO Max. It's about the events leading up to January 6th. Andrew Callahan runs the channel 5 on YouTube. This goes out to you, John.
Oh, this song. Okay, you can turn this off now.
So yeah, I watched that. It basically, it's a documentary. He kind of follows all these weird people and Alex Jones and some of those people and talks to them. And I guess since the movie came out, there have been some allegations on Andrew Callahan's dealings with the fairer sex. So that's all I'll say about that. So I also watched Sick of It, which is Carl Pilkington. If you're not familiar, Carl Pilkington is like a Ricky Gervais. What do you call it? Not an acolyte. I guess it's an acolyte. Somebody from the Ricky Gervais camp. Yeah, Disciple. There you go. I really liked Idiot Abroad, which was his show where he went around to different countries, and he's he's the idiot in an Idiot Abroad. That was more documentary style. This is actually like a sitcom, and you can think of it as basically Curb Your Enthusiasm with Carl Pilkington instead of Larry David, except that...
Is that a plus or a minus?
I don't know. I mean, it's not the exact same thing. He's kind of a loser that gets into bad situations, I guess. Larry David doesn't do so much of that, but it kind of has that vibe. You know, there's something that comes up in the episode and it's going to be referenced at the end.
Okay.
But the twist on it is that he talks to himself, his conscience talks to him in the third person. So he'll be in a scene and standing next to him will be his conscience talking to him like in his head. So it's kind of entertaining. There's only 2 seasons of it. It's a British show. I think it's on Amazon Prime. And then I watched Never Too Young to Die with John Stamos, Gene Simmons, and Vanity. Yeah. This is what we talked about. I told you about this. We'll probably talk about this more during Crummy Movie March. I think this is going to be a perfect addition
is a movie
to Crummy Movie March.
I think I'm going to cut you short on that one just because I could tell you already just from what you described to me on this past Saturday, whether it's Crummy Movie March or just in the near future, it's a movie that really deserves a full-on breakdown and episode.
Yeah.
And all that good stuff.
It's on Pluto TV. It's on Tubi. It's
the one I'm hooked on?
It's on Plex, free. It's free all over the place. This is not a hard movie to find. So just a preview. We will be talking at some point about Never Too Young to Die. So if anybody in the audience wants to watch it and they have questions or they have comments, we're doing this little thing. You mentioned it to me on Saturday. On Facebook, people can, we'll put the word out of what we're going to record about, and people can maybe leave some questions or their own kind of comments on the movies. But yeah, that's in a nutshell what I watched without getting too deep into it. What did you watch this week?
I only watched a couple things. We're right in the heart of the NFL playoffs, so most of my weekend's been revolving around watching that. But I did carve out a little time to rewatch two relatively shitty movies. One that might be too shitty for crummy movie March. Might have to save it for shitty movie September or something like that. Jesus Christ Vampire Hunter, which is also on Tubi and Plex and everything. And I forgot how much this movie does not live up to its title. I mean, it's very much so old handy cam, like just... You could tell the rig they're using is some guys just scooting around on a skateboard to move the camera as opposed to using an actual, like, camera rig or anything like that. It's got a couple moments of humor in it, but again, as a whole, it doesn't live up to its title, which is a damn shame.
That's a late 90s movie, right?
I want to say it's early 2000s, but it's like either
99, 2003, in that range.
Yeah, right in that area.
Yeah, I remember when this came out.
I do too, and I remember being, I don't know if excited's the right word, but I was right all about it because I really enjoyed, again, if you look at the artwork, and I use the word artwork sparingly, but if you look at the artwork for this or the cover art for it, and again, the name itself is an entertaining name, you feel like you're going to get something that's probably still bad, but at least moderately entertaining, and it's kind of one of those movies that is probably bad and just kind of skews more towards bad as opposed to anything else, but there's a place for that. It's still a movie, which is more than I've managed to make, so what are you going to do? The other movie that I kind of watched this week, which is another one that's kind of been floating around Tubi and keeps popping up as you should watch this, and they were a little more right on this one, was Microwave Massacre. For a movie that's titled Microwave Massacre, you would think the microwave would be more involved in the massacring, but it's kind of just more of a cooking device for cannibalism through most of the movie. Shared cannibalism, like people who don't know that they're eating human are enjoying it, but it's, it's not without its merit for a early 80s shitty movie that's kind of not that good, but we were just talking when we talked about the movie Paranormal Highway, like a bad movie should do one of several things. It should either be bad but entertaining because the acting's bad, or bad but entertaining because the special effects make you kind of laugh. And this kind of hits those marks more than anything, if that makes any reasonable sense. Yeah, so I wouldn't say go rush out and see that, but if you're bored or you've had a couple pops, it's worth popping on. It's only like an hour and a half long. That's one benefit of most of these crummy movies is they don't, usually if you see them run too long, it usually means that it was more that bad that skews towards bad because they didn't know how to cut anything out in the same time.
Yeah, the good thing about those movies is they don't linger. They
generally
come and they go.
Right. Yeah, and the ones that do linger, it's just like, you're doing everything bad to begin with. I should have known when I saw this was an hour and 45 minutes plus that this was just going to be bad. The other thing that I really got into, this isn't a watching thing so much. I mean, there is a music video for it, which is entertaining, but there's a relatively new like collaborative group out, which we've talked about the band Get Dead before, and they released a new track. I think this is their third track that they've released since they've started doing drops of songs, and this song is thoroughly addictive. It's got this great like synthy sounding undertone, and I honestly don't know if it's actually a synth or if it's a keyboard or some other weird effect making the sound that this makes, but this group is primarily Sam from Get Dead and Fat Mike from NoFX, and it seems like every other song has a litany of guys that they bring in for one track. This song is just guttural and grimy and dark, but also kind of got like this weird deep groove to it at the same time. I've lost count of how many times I've played it since it came out on Friday. And you can probably hear it playing in the background right now.
If not, then we screwed up.
I know you're saying this is the first time you're hearing it, but having listened to that Get Dead album, is this kind of what you were expecting out of it, or is this something different?
Was this what I was expecting out of the Get Dead album?
No, out of this track.
I had no expectations. This sounds almost like industrial music to me, with kind of like a punk.
I can see that.
Like we talked about before, Get Dead kind of has that almost like a hip-hop kind of feel, the way that the lyrics are kind of rapped sometimes.
Well, and the lead singer has a hip-hop background.
Yeah.
Before he was in Get Dead, that's what he was doing, so.
And it shows. I mean, but this is, I like that you say it's synthy. This sounds like I don't know, this could be straight, the the bass line and the drums could be straight out of like a Ministry album, except not as crunchy.
And I say synthy for lack of better wording. I don't really know what it is that's making the sound. I haven't taken any type of time to try to figure that out, because I just like how it sounds. That's all that matters.
Time for you to listen to more Boards of Canada.
Well, I can do that, I guess.
It's your gateway drug.
Well, sure. I like those. But if you're interested in this song and the other songs that they've put out so far are available pretty much anywhere you can stream music, and it's all available for free. So it's something different. It sounds good. I'm looking forward to seeing them in a couple weeks, so I doubt they'll play this song because it's Get Dead Them singing and not Codependents. But
yeah, if we didn't mention this is Codependents and Nate No Face. Bad Business is the name of the song. It's the single. We're going to fade out.
But that's basically all I've gotten into this week that's worth noting. Anything else is just a general type of rerun stuff. I gave that 90s show about 10 minutes, and then I felt too cringy about it and couldn't make it much past that, so I don't know if I'll give that another try or not.
I didn't even realize that was already out. I have no interest. I didn't really like that 70s show very much, and I couldn't care less.
Yeah, I didn't really like it either. I don't have a good answer as to why I started it, but like I said, I got about 10 minutes in before I got annoyed with it. I was like, that's enough of that, at least for right now. Anything else you want to add before we get into the topic of the week?
We do have a topic this week.
We do. We usually have a topic. It's been a while since we haven't had a topic. We should probably do that again. This week, we are talking about the movie M3gan or M3gan or M3gan. I'm not really sure how this is supposed to be. It actually is funny because this movie will pull up differently depending on what site you look at. But this movie is currently down from the number 1 spot on IMDb, all the way plummeting to number 5, which is still ridiculously high for most of the shit that we watch on this show. We don't know what that 5 is out of. I'll do the summary on this one because it's short. I could probably read this. The very basic plot to this movie is a robotics engineer at a toy company builds a lifelike doll that begins to take on a life of its own.
I don't like that.
I don't either. I feel like that sells the movie short, honestly.
I like the storyline better on IMDb. When Gemma suddenly becomes the caretaker of her orphaned 8-year-old niece, Katie. I thought it was KT, like Katie, but it's Katie. Gemma's unsure and unprepared to be a parent. Under intense pressure at work, Gemma decides to pair her M3gan, or M3gan, prototype with Katie in an attempt to resolve both problems, a decision that will have unimaginable consequences. I think that's a much better summary.
It is. I think that's right out of the trailer, too. Like, I feel like I heard that more than once.
That was me.
But that is was that you?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a much more accurate and much more, truthfully, it just tells you what this movie's about a lot better.
Right.
Should we give a spoiler warning on this one? I don't know how far we can go before we get into that, or do you want to try to work around that?
Oh, I think what we'll do is we'll give a spoiler warning. This movie is still in theaters. It is supposed to have some kind of home, like, on-demand release soon.
I think it's going to Peacock because I watched behind-the-scenes things on it today that had Peacock's branding all over it. So
well, that's probably
I'm
even better.
assuming that's where it's going to be, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah, so let's give a mild spoiler warning. If you have not seen the movie, we will probably dive into some themes in the movie, if not just straight up talk about things that happen in the movie. That's kind of par for the course. So if you do plan on listening to this whole podcast and you don't want it spoiled for you, if you care about that sort of thing, maybe you should go and watch the movie.
Or watch Child's Play 2019, I think it was. You might get the same idea. Where do we want to start with this one? Let's start actually with what I just said. Do you feel like this is just another killer doll movie, or do you feel like this is something else?
I didn't see Child's Play, the new one, the 2019 or whatever, 2020, 2021, whatever year it came out in the past 500 years. I didn't see it. It doesn't feel like the old Child's Play because I don't know how much of the new Child's Play. I don't really even want to reference Child's Play. The thing I think that's different between this and at least what I know of Child's Play is that the doll, M3gan, we'll just call her I'm going to call her M3gan. You can call her M3gan. You can call her whatever, M3gan if you want, but because M3gan just seems easier for me to say or to remember. M3gan...
I'm going to call her 3 Chains. She's like 2 Chains, but better.
She starts out being like an actual friend of the kid. Her motivation at first isn't to hurt anybody. it's to actually help this kid because that's how she's been programmed, is to help this kid. I feel like Chucky always has that ulterior motive of being evil because it's a killer. You know what I'm saying? Like the soul of the killer is transferred into the doll, whereas this is a doll that eventually becomes a scary doll because of stuff, you know?
Yeah, I would agree with you as far as the original run of Child's Play movies. Really, aside from there being a doll that ends up going AWOL, really has little to do with this movie. The remake plays with a lot of the same ideas. What I will say, and this is not just my like hatred of Chucky and all that shit, I feel like this movie executes those ideas significantly better. It's not without its shortcomings. I'm sure we'll get around to that, but I think just the idea of having a doll that's built on AI and the good and the bad that can come of that is kind of fleshed out a lot better in this than the gradual, really just a straight horror movie vibe of how they do it in Child's Play, the remake. I don't think it really compares to a movie like Annabelle, which was not only another killer doll movie, but another James Wan movie. We didn't mention it. This is a James Wan film.
A James Wan joint.
Yes. Sean is James Wan's hype man. If you don't remember that, I don't remember what episode we said that in, but that was a while ago.
James Wan joint.
Right. This is also a Blumhouse film, so really, if you did watch the trailer, you're probably going to see 90% of what this movie is just from that. But again, I think there's things in this that kind of come off better, like the way that this doll comes to be, like where this doll comes from and how it enters into the story, seems more feasible than the whole voodoo vom guy serial killer in a toy store idea, you know? How do you feel about the effects in this movie?
I think they're actually really well done. I don't know how much of it is animatronic and how much of it is somebody in a suit.
It's not animatronic. It is a mix of puppeteering and a girl in a... So she's not actually in a suit per se. She's an actual actress, and they digitally redo her face to be the doll
they
face.
Apply the mask, so to speak,
so,
for lack of a better term, onto her face.
There's pictures of her wearing a mask, and that looks creepy because she couldn't see, so they cut the eyes out of it, and it looks really bizarre. It looks like a child's like version of Leatherface. The way that, and again, this is, I'll try to include it. We'll include it in the show notes, but there's a behind the scenes that shows a lot of how they were doing this, which I actually found interesting because watching this the first time and knowing that there's an actor inside the doll in certain points, they do a pretty good job of hiding which one's which. There's times where it's pretty obvious, like if you have a scene where this doll is covering vast amounts of ground and there's no way that there could be a puppeteer hidden in there, you kind of know that's the actor doing it, but there's a lot of times where it's subtle enough that it works really well.
How do you know that, though?
How do I know that?
Yeah.
The internet told me.
I mean, Kermit rode a bike in 1980.
That's true. Has Kermit ever killed anyone?
I'm sure he has. But I'm just saying, if Kermit can ride a bike, I'd love to see the movie where he does, though. If Kermit can ride a bike...
Look how sure of yourself you were when you said it.
Hey, you never know. If Kermit can ride a bike in 1990 and it looks like he's riding a goddamn bike, then anything's possible to me.
When you say it looks like he's riding a bike, I think you're using the bare minimum of what it looks like to ride a bike.
He doesn't look like he's riding a bike. Kermit the Frog is riding a bike. He doesn't look like he's riding a bike. He's riding a bike.
I was more impressed with Fozzie driving than Kermit riding a bike.
Yeah, you can't see his feet, though. Like, his whole body is in the picture. But let's get off Kermit.
Sean, there's
just
people without legs in real life, and they still manage to have vehicles that they could drive. Handicap does not mean incapable.
Fozzie the Bear has feet that work. Let's not get into a debate about the anatomy of a Muppet, but let's just say that I don't know. They do a really good job. You asked about special effects. I just think they do a really good job of there's none of that forced perspective stuff. Like I hate to keep bringing up Chucky, but it's a good point of reference. We talked about Chucky. We talked about Child's Play, and there were scenes in that movie where there's clearly a person in a suit, in a Chucky suit. Yeah, because the perspective, like the size is just
they
off.
do the giant sets,
yes,
and
with the
bigger person,
right, and the person's
and
clothes, like it's camera tricks.
Yeah.
Whereas with this, it's got to be a good combination of like you said, puppeteering, CG, and an actor with their face digitally enhanced. So to answer your question before the Muppets and all that good stuff, I do think that the special effects are really well done. Even like stupid stuff like the Furby-alike that poops when you feed it too much candy or whatever it does. Like that whole thing.
Forgot about that.
Yeah.
I think that thing's in and out of the movie pretty quick.
Yeah, it's kind of like what the whole first 20 minutes of the movie is based on, is that...
Yeah.
So just to preface it, the aunt is played by Allison
Williams.
Yeah, sorry. And she is the toy maker. She's Gemma. She's the aunt. And she's like basically making this Furby doll. They have this Furby that you can feed, and it like farts all the time and it poops out like candy or something, right? And the girl, Katie's parents are killed, and she goes to live with the aunt, and the aunt's trying to make this other thing to like secure her legacy, because, you know, she was this robotics creator in college, and she kind of wants to elevate this toy. She wants to make the ultimate toy.
She made like the real life Rock'em Sock'em robot.
Yeah, basically that's like controlled with hand movements, everything. It's like VR without the VR controlling this avatar.
Didn't they do that in some Hugh Jackman movie? And you have one where he's in like a
Real
robot
Steel.
boxing. Yeah. Anyway, so further movies that this is...
Well, it's got ideas, but I wouldn't say that it's borrowed from that. I think this is an individual thing. I mean, James Wan did the story, and Akela Cooper did the screenplay. So, yeah, it's basically like a James Wan idea that someone else fleshed out. So you can say James Wan has a hand in it, but I don't know if I'd necessarily, you know, he draws attention, right? Putting James Wan's name on something.
So clearly on his fucking payroll.
I am. James, make checks payable to Dewey Pod Monster. Help us pay the hosting bill at the very least. But anyways, so she's trying to develop this ultimate toy, like the toy to end all toys, and her boss is on her back about it. And at first the toy is a piece of crap. It like breaks down. It's not programmed correctly. Katie, her parents
blows up.
Yeah, her parents are killed in this car accident. Well, the stupidest car accident of all time. And she goes to live with her aunt, and her aunt basically makes this robot come back because she doesn't want to be a parent. Like, she's too busy to be a parent. It's got a lot of really interesting ideas that play off of the electronic babysitter, right? Like, my kid's being really loud, I'm going to give them an iPad. Or they're getting on my nerves. Everything's about pushing responsibility of being a parent off onto something else. And this film really explores, what if you could make AI be your parent? AI would be the parent. This thing would watch the kid. It would read its stories. It would teach it math or teach it school studies. It could be homeschooled by this robot, and that would give you all the free time to drink wine and, you know, work on your robot, I guess. It's interesting. It's an interesting idea.
Well, and I think that's where this movie does a good job separating itself from some of those other movies that we compared it to. Is, you know, again, it's not without flaw, but you do get to see a pretty good job of them showing this robot evolve from being just this real, I don't want to call it a basic program, because obviously it's quite a bit more intuitive than that, but you see it evolve from being this, where it starts as a program, and how it kind of gradually grows to this underlying problem that everyone who sees this is going to know that have an idea that things are going to go poorly before the end of this movie. But in a sense, it almost feels a little rushed, but it flushes the idea out well, where it's almost believable. Like, as far as how this doll's AI is evolving, how it's learning, and why it's starting to make the less favorable decisions that lead to the end of this movie.
I don't know if I'd actually say that I feel like it's rushed until maybe the end.
The end's kind of where, for me, this movie takes a turn. Again, we'll get to that, because I don't want to jump right to that yet.
Well, this movie is rated PG-13. I know you were telling me something that a bunch of it was cut to make the rating.
Yeah, so I guess we'll get to that. Yeah. This movie is a PG-13 movie, and when this movie came out, I think it was on beginning of January. I want to say January 6th, because it was on some of the advertising that I saw. And like a day or two before, both is it Jason Blum and your boy James
Wan.
Wan.
Yep.
We're both saying that this movie, that there's a lot of gore that was cut out, and that this movie is trimmed down to make the PG-13 rating. Now, there's obvious reasons why you do that, because you want to make more money. Okay, well, that's fine. For me, especially knowing that going into this movie, there's a lot of points once we get to the third act of this film where it felt, I was painfully aware of the fact that this was a PG-13 movie that had been essentially neutered to get a PG-13 as opposed to an R. And we mentioned...
Do you mean it's an R-rated movie that was neutered to PG-13?
Yeah, that's what I meant. I'm sorry. Yep. We mentioned that we're going to start kind of putting things out there to try to get some feedback about the movie ahead of time before we talked about it. And we did that with this movie, just kind of chumming the water, see what came back. I had 4 different people respond. Every single one of them made a point of mentioning the PG-13 rating. It was a 50-50 split. Like, half of them said it didn't bother them at all. Half of them said that it kind of took them out of the movie. You know, I think, I don't want to hear the argument that you can't do a PG-13 horror movie and have it come out good. I think that's stupid. But I think that when you know that there's an R-rated movie that exists, and if you want that extra push to the R-rated, like, I feel like it would have helped this movie feel more intense, and it would have made the consequences of this style feel a lot more... maybe not believable, but a lot more, entertaining, to be perfectly honest, if they had just gone full on, like, if the third act went full on hard R and did what I would have expected it to do once this doll has essentially gone rogue.
I don't know if I agree with that.
That's fair.
I feel like...
Go ahead. Tell me why I'm wrong.
No, I don't think you're wrong. I just don't agree with it. I don't think that...
Okay.
I mean, now that knowing that this was cut down to be an R, I'm curious to see what was cut. But I don't feel like the movie was compromised. So that almost makes me question, like, what was actually cut? If I don't feel like it's compromised, maybe it needed to be cut. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like the PG-13 version, if there's, let's say, half an hour, what's the runtime on this movie? Do you remember?
It's only like an hour and a half, which is to its credit.
So if we added another half hour, and the ending is still the ending, there's no mention of, I don't remember anything that was mentioned that I was like, when did that happen? You know what I'm saying? So it kind of makes me think, like, how much worse would I have thought this movie was if the full thing was in there? Like, it just feels like it would have drug on for 2 hours at that point.
I think it could be a matter of 5 minutes, because I think it's the majority of where it's going to be is going to be in the big reveal of, like, what's supposed to be the big reveal of this toy to the market is where M3gan, or 3 Chains, as we're calling her, really starts to go off, and this is where she actually starts killing people. And that's where you see a lot of cutaway scenes. You see the tone of the blood go from a blood color to like a darker color. You see things fade out and see quick cuts and stuff like that. And those are the things that feel like you could have... I mean, just think of what's in the elevator when they open the elevator, and they actually do show a little bit in there. Mm-hmm. But if I had to guess, what's probably missing in there is what actually happened in those scenes. You probably see, again, I don't know what she would have done specifically, but essentially seeing these people get butchered up in this hallway scene that instead turned into a TikTok dance that sold the movie, essentially.
Yeah, I guess I just don't feel like that's always necessary.
It's not necessary. Like, I don't want it to come off like that. It's not necessary. But then again, neither is a movie about an AI robot doll that kills things.
Well, I mean, if we're using that logic, then nothing is necessary.
Well, there we go. We're back on the nihilism kick.
Nothing is necessary.
It's not necessary, but if you're selling this movie, and this is another point that I want to bring up, is this is not a slasher movie. I don't really know why it's getting labeled as a slasher movie. But if that's the angle that you're going for, is a slasher movie, have some slashing happen. That's kind of the point of that genre. And yeah, again, I'm sure whenever it comes to Peacock or to whoever it goes to, you know, maybe I'm wrong on that, maybe it ends up on something else. I'm sure the day it comes out, whatever that difference is going to be available. Since they're already talking about it, it just seems like an easy way for them to get a second round of hype around it from what they've already done. I just felt like it was something that it didn't necessarily take me out of the movie, but it did make me feel like I didn't get the full experience of what could have been.
I just wonder, kind of when you said something about the trailer, did you watch the trailer before you watched this movie?
No.
I wonder.
I saw the dance though because it was
that kind
all
of
over.
yeah, you couldn't avoid that. I just wonder how many people. It'd be interesting to see how many people of the people who watched the movie that commented on the Facebook post. How many of those people saw the trailer and how many didn't? I didn't go into the movie with really any expectation other than I saw. It's really funny when I saw that this movie was coming out. It was like. I just heard about the movie. It was probably in December. And I was like, oh, I think I mentioned it to you. I was like, oh, have you seen this thing? Blah, blah, blah. And it just looked creepy.
Like just like, no.
It was like, has that uncanny valley look to the face and everything. It just looks off enough that I thought it looked creepy. But I didn't see anything else besides that. I kind of like clicked on it to see who was in it in the movie. But I didn't see the trailer. I didn't know much about anything. But like you said, the dance, I think, was unavoidable. Like, we've talked about it before. I don't look for trailers. I try not to watch any of that stuff. But I definitely saw part of the dance. Like, I don't even know where I would have seen it, but it just, creeps in somewhere, social media or somewhere. I felt like because I didn't see anything, maybe that is why I'm not so put out, I guess, that I didn't get that extra thing. Like you said, once it comes on streaming, I'm sure there will be a cut that's like the uncut or the extended cut, or they might just release it without it.
Whatever they want to call it.
Yeah. And maybe there will be two versions, basically two SKUs on streaming. One that's the version you can show your kid, and the one that you might have to, for whatever arbitrary reason, you have to wait till they're 18 or whatever stupid, silly thing. Yeah.
I do think if I didn't know that there was an R-rated cut going into the movie, I think I would have enjoyed it more.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about that, so... Maybe that explains it.
As far as like trailers and stuff like that, like this didn't feel like a movie that I needed a trailer for. In fact, I think even last week when we talked about this, you were saying that you wanted to watch this. I was like, nah, and here we are.
Yeah.
This one didn't really sell itself to me ahead of time, but I will say I enjoyed it more than I thought it would, so that's a good thing.
So I know that we're thinking that they were kind of probably neutered in some way. What did you think of some of the kills that we got, like the dog, the neighbor, the kid in the woods? What did you think of those?
So I'm never a fan of a dog getting killed in a movie. It's, just one of those things I don't like, so I could have done without that. It wasn't on screen, so I guess that helps. But for me, I hear a lot of people say they don't like seeing kids get hurt or anything like that, and to an extent I can deal with that. I don't want to see the dog get hurt because I'm a horrible human being. The scene with the neighbor, I kind of watched it like, with that killer? I guess. I've used one of those at home. It's a power washer she uses, right?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yep.
I don't, it's enough to kind of give you a bad afternoon, but I don't think it would kill someone.
I don't know. I don't think I'd ever want to be hit by a power washer.
Well, I'm not claiming it would be pleasant, but I don't know that it would cause death.
Anything could cause death.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know. I think that'd be a pretty bad way to go.
I mean, if it does kill you, yeah, that would be a pretty bad way to go. It's like waterboarding times 2.
We'll just be shooting a hole in you. I mean, you can, like...
Theoretically.
You spray dirt off of your fence with it. I mean, it's pretty high pressure.
Yeah, but I still don't think that a at-home power washer is going to be quite that strong. I guess it's possible, but it seems unlikely.
Hold your hand at the end of the wand next time and
No, I said I don't want to do it. I don't need to have my hands being Jesus cosplay just to like prove your point. So
I just thought the kill itself was kind of humorous. The neighbor character.
What's that?
I thought the kill was humorous.
Yeah.
That neighbor character's so just shitty, like everybody has a neighbor that you're just kind of
I had no sympathy. Yeah, no sympathy for the neighbor. Yeah, sympathy for the dog, but not for the neighbor. Fuck the neighbor. What are some of the other ones? I mean, there's really not a lot of kills in this. For a movie that's sold as like another Killer Doll movie, there's, maybe 5 people total that get got in this? Maybe?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, 5 or 6. I didn't keep count. This isn't a Deadly Prey kill count or anything, but...
No. Deadly Prey blows it out of the water as far as that goes.
Yeah.
In the first 2 minutes of the movie. But what I liked about the scenes that we did get is there's, unlike Chucky, when this doll comes to life and starts doing murdery things, it's a lot more interesting of a watch. It's more interesting to see. The effects are just dramatically better. So the way that it's moving and the way that it's doing what it's doing is more impressive to watch than what you would have got out of previous versions of this type of thing. Part of that is just the technology and where we're at right now. And then part of that is just because this character is not nearly as annoying as Chucky is. I like the idea of her just, because you never see those big like paper cutters anymore that she uses to get the blade from. I like the idea of her just popping that off like it's nothing and using it like a machete in the hallway. I was like, well, that's fairly entertaining, because that kind of gives you an idea of why you would make a child's toy this overpowered is humorous, but there they are.
Yeah, she basically carries it around like a scimitar or something, like a sword.
I thought of it as a machete, but yeah, scimitar works too. And again, Ginsu knife of paper cutters, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think who else actually died in the movie other than the couple people in the elevator.
The kid in the woods.
Oh, the kid. I thought that scene was kind of weird. So I know this is after the dog scene, but I never really got why she got on all fours and chased him like a dog.
I didn't get that either. I think just to freak him out maybe, but why would she know that that's something that would be terrifying?
Yeah.
You wouldn't think that you'd move any faster as a human being.
No, and I don't think you would, and you certainly wouldn't be more efficient. And I wouldn't think she would quite know what freaked out is. I also didn't understand why that kid was being such a general prick to begin with. I was like, what did anyone do to you, little shit?
Maybe he's just a sociopath.
I guess. Didn't really feel bad about him getting it either. But that scene was a little weird. I felt like that could have played out better. I do like the scene of Three Chains sitting on the toy table with all the like stuffed animals and stuff, just looking generally creepy. That was kind of entertaining. I don't know. What do you think about some of these?
I just thought some of them were kind of humorous. I thought like the kid was kind of, I got a little laugh out of it. The woman, the neighbor. I thought the detective, he's asking questions and I forget how he phrases it, but he asked this question and it's like, oh yeah, did you hear about so-and-so? And it was something that was related. I don't know. Didn't they call you?
She was complaining about the dog the day before, and then he was like, well, she's not going to bug you again.
Well, no, it was the detective, not the cop.
Oh.
The detective comes and says something and kind of, it's about somebody else that died. And he's like, yeah, we came over here. We've gotten 2 statements. I think it was the kid. We've gotten 2 statements from you in 2 days. What's going? And then she's like, yeah. The detective says something to the effect of, yeah, the kid's ears was, they found his ears and blah 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 next to 20 feet away. And
oh yeah.
And he's like, I probably shouldn't be. I don't know why I'm telling you this. Which I thought was funny because he acknowledges the reason that he's telling her is a ridiculous reason. But one thing that I don't know, for some reason, just really, it's nitpicky, but it's like, this thing is a prototype, right?
Oh.
This is a prototype that you're working on for a huge corporation. There is no way in hell that a corporation would be cool with you taking a working prototype of a product that they're considering putting in development.
Not a product like this.
That's top secret. And you're just out in public. Like this. Yeah, you're driving with it in your car. Your kid's going to summer camp, I know it's not summer camp, but she's going to, whatever. And they'd be cool with you just showing this thing off to who, and like, that's no way. I mean, you've heard of like the old iPhones got leaked or Android phones or whatever left in a bar and people picked it up, and some of that could be marketing, but that's a phone. This is like basically a robot that can act autonomously. There is no fucking way.
Well, to kind of piggyback on that, there's no way that this wouldn't have some kind of fail-safe in it at this point. Now, I know the premise is that the AI kind of overrides that at some point, but if the person, Gemma, who's the one who programs this, I refuse to believe that she wouldn't be able to access this remotely and just write some kind of kill code and just end it right there. I don't know shit about programming AI, but I feel like that would be programming AI like 101. Like when the Terminator shows up, this is how we shut it off, Well,
I think it's interesting commentary on AI in general, but I also think that there's theories that when when AI becomes sentient, basically, that they're going to speak to each other in a language that you are never going to be able to understand. They are not going to speak in like English, and they might not even speak out loud, but they're going to communicate in a way that we would never know. Oh yeah, it's got to be Pig Latin. Yeah,
right.
So they could do, they could eventually rewrite their own code. I don't put that out of the realm of possibility that she has access to all this stuff. She accesses the smart home network essentially, and learns all this stuff. Is on Wi-Fi, downloads all this
Orders
stuff
a bunch of shit from Alexa.
Yeah, yep, glorified Alexa, and that is able to speak to these other smart home devices, Internet of Things devices, and has its way with whatever it wants. I just think that's kind of a scary concept on its own. It could have been maybe explored a little bit more, but I like that they kind of tap in a little bit, but they could have tapped in a lot more. I don't know how much you can get into in an 1.5-hour movie. I mean, this isn't a movie. It's a movie about AI that's not really about AI. It's just about a creepy doll.
It's actually quite relieving that it's only an 1.5 hours, because this is totally the kind of premise that I could easily see a studio stretching into like a 2.5-hour movie.
Yeah, falling down a rabbit hole on some thing. Yeah.
So that's kind of a big plus in this one. I guess the only other thing to really cover before we get into hot dogs is, this is already announced that there's sequels coming for this. Do you have any thoughts on that, kind of right where it's at right now?
At the end of the movie, I did feel like they could have killed it. Could have been done, but the way that they
ripped its head off and made it look like Daft Punk for a minute, so that was kind of entertaining.
I think the way that they're going to go is going to be basically like Chucky. Chucky lived in the ether for a little bit before he took over a new body, and I think that this is going to be funky. The toy company's either going to make some new prototype, they're going to try and revise the thing. It's never going to happen again that way, and then Megan's going to get back into this thing, or it's going to manifest in some other device, but it'll have to be some kind of personified
And that's
AI.
kind of exactly what my thought was with it. It's like, where do you go with this to keep it moving other than, okay, well, there's money to be made here. It's not going to happen again. And, oh, look at that. It happened again.
I mean, is it going to be in like an Aibo, like a Sony Aibo robot dog? No, it's going to be in like some kind of human thing. Otherwise, it's Ghost in the Machine from like 97 or whenever that came out. That stupid movie.
It's not great. You want to start on hot dogs, or you want me to go first?
I can start on it. I think that will probably be pretty different from how we've already been talking. But for me, I'd give it 7 rubber faces out of 11. I don't know, other things. I just thought it was really, entertaining. Like, I think, like I said at the beginning, Megan is like the good guy doll who starts to turn bad because of the codependency in the relationship. There's a lot of themes that are kind of looked at in this movie. We're talking AI, we're talking about absent parenting, codependency. I like to look for humor in horror. We've said that a lot. I think that's fairly evident, and I think that this movie has a lot of black or really subtle humor. It's not.
It's marketed that way.
Yeah,
it's actually labeled as a horror comedy.
Okay. Yeah, I think I did see that, but it's not beating you over the head with trying to be funny. It's not like somebody comes with a cane and a top hat and they're doing like a shuffle or something into the screen.
No clowns.
That's true. I don't like dolls. I don't like doll movies. I don't like where dolls are the thing that's scary. So for me to give it a 7 out of 11, I think it says a lot about it. It just slyly inserts the funny when you're not really expecting it. I didn't even like the movie Dolls. I saw that when I saw just a scene.
Yeah, I didn't like that one either.
Of it when I was like 9, and I noped right out of that. Like, I don't ever need to see this. I didn't want to go in the upstairs in the house I was in where they watched the movie because they could have dolls there. It wasn't my house. I don't like dolls. So, like I said, 7 out of 11. I think for someone with my background that doesn't like clowns, which is should be fairly evident, doesn't like dolls, especially the ones where you tilt them and the eyes close. I don't like those. Dolls are super creepy. I think that's kind of saying a lot, but I mean, it's not the best movie. There are little nitpicky things that we could talk about. There's just weird little things that happen that are kind of like, why did that happen? Or, but I don't think there's any question for me on, they need to add the 5 minutes or however long in. I need to see the R-rated version. I think that this PG-13 rated version is just A-okay.
We're not as far apart as you would think, surprisingly. I will say, I think my favorite line in this movie is when Gemma says to M3gan, "You kill people," and she replies, "Oh, big whoop." I thought that was a really, really great line. So for me, this movie is maybe the most solid 6 hot dogs out of 10 big whoops of any movie that I can think of. It did exceed my expectations, and I think I had lower expectations going into this than you did. Like I mentioned, even a week ago when we talked about this, I was kind of on the fence and just kind of did it for the audience because that's what you do. But this movie, like I mentioned before, I don't feel like there's anything in this movie that I haven't really seen in one way or another. It's kind of a hodgepodge of ideas that have come from different doll movies, different robot movies, and different AI movies, and all kind of sandwiched together. That being said, I feel like this movie kind of executes almost every one of those ideas a little bit better. I didn't ever feel like this movie was scary in any real way. It's got little moments of creepy, but just in the sense that dolls are kind of creepy to begin with. There's nothing about this that I would call a scary movie. My gripes, if I'm going to have a gripe with it, is, again, I felt like the third act especially was kind of neutered. I was hoping for more of a payoff, which is, maybe that's just me, maybe not. Again, from the feedback that I got, I feel like that's kind of split right down the middle from my giant market research of 4 people. The other thing that I can say about this movie is, so I watched this movie towards the beginning of last week, and I've kind of gone back to looking at stuff on it to keep it fresh so we could do this show, but it is very forgettable. Like, even when we've talked, because obviously we talked throughout the week. When I talked to you on Saturday, it took me like a minute to be like, what the hell did I watch? Oh yeah, M3gan, that's right. I had to I found myself, outside of the overarching plot of Killer Doll, or AI Killer Doll, I guess, I found myself kind of forgetting about the details on this movie fairly quickly, and just kind of having it go to being one of those movies. It's not bad. It's not a movie that, like, if I were to watch this movie, I don't know that I would want to pay theater prices, but let's say I paid $10 to watch this movie, I wouldn't feel like I was ripped off of my $10. I certainly wouldn't feel like I was ripped off of my time. But it's outside of maybe wanting to see how they do bump up the R rating, I really don't have a big desire to go back and watch this again. So it's just kind of right in the middle for me. It's not bad, but it's not anything fantastic either.
I want to go back real quick, and you said creepy. We didn't even bring it up. The creepiest thing about this movie is that the doll sits next to the kid all night and charges.
Sleeping. Yeah.
It's like,
while watching her.
Yeah, it's insidious. It reads your body language. It can read your emotions on your face. Like, get that thing away from me. Get that thing away from my bed.
Yeah.
Get that thing away from my kid.
Yeah, or how it sits and stares out the window randomly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But creepy isn't scary. Those are two different things.
Yeah,
So,
apples and oranges.
So, wrapping with this, the other quote in this movie that's really memorable and worth repeating, this movie is the moment that we kicked Hasbro right in the dick.
I do remember that, actually.
So with that in mind, I think we're going to wrap here. I think that's all we got. In the meantime, please do like, review, rate, share the show. That would be super helpful. Greatly appreciated. Follow us on all the social networks. We are at Dewey Pod Monster pretty much anywhere you can find us. I will be posting whatever we decide to talk about next. We'll put that up in the next day or two and try to get your feedback so we can work those ideas into the show. Let us know if you want us to actually read out your comments kind of more verbatim, or if you just want us to kind of work with the ideas like we did today. I don't know if anyone wants to be thrown under the bus, for lack of better wording, like that, but if you're interested in being more of a participant, I guess, let us know. Aside from that, I'm probably forgetting something, but Sean will probably catch it for me and let you know where you can find him.
I don't remember anything ever, but you can find me at youtube.drafttherapy.com. I am the expert on Michigan craft beer, I guess. So I talk about that kind of stuff. We're doing Cellar Dive March. So what am I talking about? Cellar Dive January. It's March. It's January.
Same thing.
Yeah. So I'm digging in my cellar to see if I got good beer, if it's just meh after all that time. You can also check me out on all the social medias at Draft Therapy.
All right, that's all we got this week. We will talk to you next Tuesday morning. Same Dewey Pod place, same Dewey Pod time. Have a great week.
Ven acá, mírame la cara, hijo de puta. Fuiste tú, ¿verdad? Tú estabas vendiendo esa porquería que mató a mi hermana. Que en esta parte de la calle nos bregamos con esa mierda de la China, loco. Te jodiste. Ya tú sabes lo que va a pasar ahora.